Hello mathematicians, here is the video for home connections 141 and 142. Lots of decimal and fraction work on this. All right, number 1 says, label each marked point on the decimal strip with a decimal number. So we're going to write it as a decimal. Use tenths when you can and hundredths when you must. When you look at this decimal strip, it's like a mat of 100 little units, all separated out, like each strip has been turned horizontally. So there's 100 little squares, 100 little units, and we're going to use that just to practice some decimal concepts. All right, that first arrow next to A, I'm sure you already knew this, but there are 10 little squares in each section. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 hundredths, and we're going to write that as a decimal. All right, letter B, I can tell that there are 10 in each section, right? 10, 20, 30, or we could think of it as 3 strips out of 10. Now, it did say to write tenths when you can. You could also write it in hundredths, but because they said tenths when you can, I'm going to write 0.3. If you wrote 0.30, mathematically that's correct. It just doesn't follow the directions exactly how they said. All right, letter C. I know that there are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58 squares out of 100, so 58 hundredths. And letter D, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 out of 100, or 8 strips out of 10 strips. So I should write just 0.8. If you wrote 0.80, mathematically that's correct. Again, it just doesn't follow the directions exactly how they said. Okay, hope you feel good on that section. Number 2 says, record each decimal you wrote in problem 1 beside a decimal unit frame. So we're just going to look up above and write the same decimals down below. Then shade in the frame and write a fraction to represent it. All right, so the first one, letter A, says 16 hundredths. So let's go ahead and rewrite it here so we know what we're looking at. 16 hundredths. And let's write it as a fraction. 16 hundredths. And then we just have to shade it in. So go ahead and shade in 16 little squares. And it's okay if you shade in a different 16 than I do, as long as 16 out of 100 are shaded. Okay, let's look up above. Letter B is 3/10. I'm going to write it like that. Now, if you wrote 30 hundredths, that works as well, because those are equivalent. And 3/10 or 30 hundredths, that would be 3 strips, or 30 little units. Okay, shade it like that. Letter C is 58 hundredths. So let me rewrite it here. Oops, use green here. All right, 58 hundredths. And we're going to write it as a fraction as well, 58 hundredths. And then we're going to shade in 58 units out of the 100 units. So here's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then I've got to shade in 8 more. And it's okay if we shaded slightly differently, as long as 58 are shaded, okay? All right, and finally, letter D, let me look up there. Letter D was 8/10. So I'm going to write 8/10 as a decimal, 8/10 as a fraction, which of course is the same as 80 hundredths. So 8 strips or 80 little squares, one and the same. Okay, that's page 141. Let's go ahead and look at page 142. 142 says, shade each fraction on a frame, so that means on the picture, then write an equivalent fraction and 2 decimals. Okay, so we have to write, let's see, we got to shade first, then write an equivalent fraction, then write 2 decimals. So keep looking up at the directions when there's a lot of directions, because that'll help you make sure you don't miss something. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is shade 4/10. So 4/10 would be 4 strips, right? 4 out of the 10 strips. And I need to write an equivalent fraction. So 4/10 is the same as 40/100. See how I'm writing it differently from up above, right? Okay. And then, oops, there we go. Okay, and then I need to write two equivalent decimals, or two decimals. So I'm going to write 0.4. That decimal matches the fraction up above. And 0.40, exactly the same thing, just a 0 at the end. That one matches the second fraction, okay? All right, but all of those things are equivalent to each other, right? 4/10 is the same as 40/100. 4/10 is the same as 40/100. All right, let's take a look at the next one. We get rid of those little marks. Letter B says 70/100. 70/100 would be 70 little squares. So the first thing I have to do is shade them. And then I need to write an equivalent fraction, so not the same. I'm going to write 70/100 is the same as 7/10. 70 little squares is the same as 7 strips. And then I'm going to write two decimals. I'm going to write 1 decimal to match one of the fractions and 1 decimal to match the other fraction. And those decimals are totally the same. All of those yellow things are equal to each other. All of those orange things are equal to each other. All right, letter C, 3/10 means 3 strips. And I have to write an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to multiply the top by 10 and the bottom by 10. And even though it looks different, it's really the same amount, right? 3 strips is the same as 30 little squares. And I'm going to write 1 decimal to match the fraction on the top and 1 decimal to match the fraction I wrote. And they're exactly the same thing. All of those green things are equivalent to each other. All right, number 4, write an inequality symbol. That just means less than or greater than, right? They're not equal. One side is bigger than the other. They're unequal to compare them. All right, on this one, I'm going to say it a bunch. I need a 0, right? Let's add a little baby Zoe and a little baby Zion. Now it's easy to tell which one's bigger, 20/100 or 40/100. 40/100 is bigger. I really want you to add those zeros. So if you didn't on your own, do it right now. Multiply the top by 10 and the bottom by 10, or I need a 0, or baby Zoe, baby Zion. We say a lot of things in class. The point is to make each fraction as similar as humanly possible. If one's in the hundredths, make the other one go up to the hundredths place, and then it's easier to tell which one's bigger, 30/100 or 70/100. 70/100 is bigger. Same thing for the next one. Let's make them both go up to the hundredths place by multiplying the top by 10 and the bottom by 10. 70/100 is bigger again. Let's see here. Multiply the top by 10 and the bottom by 10. 30/100 is bigger. All right, now some decimals. Notice that these two decimals are already very similar. They both go up to the hundredths place already. Sometimes kids find success thinking of money. What's bigger, 40 cents or 4 cents? Whoops. Oh, goodness. Hold on, let me hit undo here. And what color am I grabbing? I'm grabbing orange. And I'm saying 40 is bigger than 4. All right, on this one, I need a 0. You can add a 0 at the end of a decimal, and it just makes it better to look at on your eyeballs. It's still the same amount, but it's easier to compare this way. What's bigger, 89 or 90? 90 is bigger. All right, again, I need a 0. What's bigger, 50 or 51? 51. I need a 0. What's bigger, 20, right? Adding the 0 on this one's really important. What's bigger, 20 or 9? 20/100 is bigger than 9/100. So make your decimals and your fractions as similar as humanly possible. And it's always easier to tell which one's bigger that way. And it's easier to add them and all of that. All right, number 5. Drew says 3/10 plus 28/100 is 30. Oh, Drew. No. Sam, I'm liking this. Okay, Sam is correct, but let's talk about why. One of them didn't realize that if the denominators are not the same, you gotta make them the same. Okay, so let me write down what Sam did because I like what Sam did. So let me write down the original thing here. And you might say, but Mrs. Judson, 3 plus 28 is not 58. Well, that's because Sam knew that you have to make the denominators both into 100 before adding them. 3/10 is the same as 30 hundredths. Now you can see 30 plus 28 is 58. So Sam is correct because Sam changed 3/10 to 30 hundredths, just as he or she should have. All right. Then it says to sketch it on the decimal strip. Oh, we can totally do that. Okay. 3/10. It's not just 3 little squares. It's 3 strips. That's why Sam's correct. Sam realized that 3/10 is the same as 30 little squares. And then let's add 28 more. So there's 20 and there's 8 more. And you can see that that does finish off at 58 hundredths. Like Sam said, not at 31 hundredths like Drew said. All right, let's take a look at all of the answers real quick before we go. Here's page 141 and page 142. All right, kids, I'll see you in class.